What's up, guys? It's Jim with Awakened TCG. Today, bringing you guys a complete breakdown of the OP07 meta. Going to really try to kind of show this meta as a whole and what it came down to in the end, in the final month, and what decks you should probably be looking at depending on what you enjoy playing in the current meta or just what you enjoy playing in general. Spoilers, I think the OP07 meta is probably one of the most diverse we've ever seen. OP06 was pretty diverse. Obviously, Sakazuki was still very dominant. But it didn't allow, other decks not to shine, right? Like, we still had Moria, Yamato tops, Reiju tops, a couple other decks tops, even a Whitebeard as of recent. So we had a decent meta, but I think the OP07 meta has probably an even more diverse set of decks that we can choose from as players to actually compete in tournaments, which is really nice, right? Because when there's only like a few of the best decks, like, 3 to choose from if you're realistically trying to win a tournament, that kind of sucks, especially if those 3 decks don't really fit your playstyle. So I think having more options to kind of express, how you like to play the game is really nice to have. But let's just go ahead and get into this complete breakdown. It's going to be a long one, so buckle up. So first up here, we have this graph provided by OP Hirata on Twitter right here. If you have not seen them, please do give them a follow. They make great breakdowns for the meta in the East. But these bubbles right here are basically, these are all flagship wins. Flagship wins, if you don't know, in the East are pretty much just a little bit larger locals. I think they cap at, I think they're about 64 players. So I think they go 5 to 7 rounds. I could be completely wrong at that, but they're pretty big tournaments. So the leaders that are winning flagships, this isn't, there's going to be some random one-offs, but if you're winning a flagship, yeah, you're a pretty good leader. Obviously, if you win more, you're showing that you are a very strong leader. But this is all of the flagship wins for decks in the month of May. So let's just break it down, because the May was the final month of OP07. So this is kind of when Japan had the meta solved. So first up here, we have RP Law. If you don't know by now, once Sokka's banned, it just completely opens the floodgates for this deck, and it becomes undoubtedly the best deck. I see people arguing that it should be nerfed or banned. I completely disagree. I think it's I haven't played the meta yet, don't get me wrong, but at least looking at the numbers right now, there's always going to be a best deck, guys, right? It's never going to be completely even. One deck is going to stand above the rest. That's fine. And if one deck is going to stand above the others, this is kind of what it should look like if we have a healthy meta, right? It's not completely over-dominant over the rest. It has more wins, right? It has a considerable amount more wins, but that doesn't mean other decks can't win. And that is what we like to see in a top meta deck. So if you are playing RP Law this set, I would stick to it, right? It gets a lot better next set. I think you don't even really get that many new tools. I think the only new RP Law card that we're actually running, if we look at a list right here, is pretty much right here, this new Sanji, 6-cost 2K, which is pretty much just a 3-cost blocker because it subtracts its cost in hand by 3 when you are at 2 Dawn or less than your opponent, which RP Law with 1 Dawn minus 3 is automatically at. So, excuse me. That is pretty much our only new card. So if you already have an RP Law deck and you enjoy the deck, stick on it because this is going to be what you're playing next set. Next up here at 92 wins, 92 flagship wins to be exact, is going to be Black and Yellow Luffy. I think he kind of squeaked in towards the end, passing up Luffy as the number 2 most disputed deck. That could be because Black Lucci, he counters Black Lucci. So obviously the more Black Luccis you're going to see, the more Black Yellow Luffys are going to have a chance to win. So this is a fantastic deck. Another deck that's pretty good right now as well. So this is a deck you can stick to. Here's an example list right here that won a flagship as well. And I don't really think there's any crazy new cards we're even running in here. The only new card that is really worth mentioning is going to be right here, this new 5-cost Luffy, which, if you don't know, it is a 5/6, obviously usable off of the 2-cost Luffy and leader effect. That is going to, once on board, you can actually trash it. You will draw a card if you're at 2 or less life, and then you KO a 4-cost. So, really versatile card. Giving this deck access to removal is really nuts. I think some decks even choosing to run Ice Age to counter certain cards. So, really good inclusion, but this deck doesn't really change that much either. So definitely one that if you're playing right now, you should probably stick to, or if you have been thinking about getting into it, now is 100% the time to get into this. This is undisputably a top 3 deck in OP07. In third place here at 68 wins is going to be Rob Lucci. Rob Lucci is a new deck in OP07, our only new deck of the top 3 right here. So if you are looking to get into the new deck, this is probably going to be your best one. Rob Lucci is pretty much just, I almost want to call him Sakazuki Jr. So if you're playing Sakazuki this set, he is going to be banned if you did not hear. I think Rob Lucci would be the perfect deck to swap to. I'm actually going to be playing Rob Lucci myself. I did not play Sakazuki, just a little bit too oppressive for me. Rob Lucci's in that sweet spot. I played Rob Lucci of OP03. Back in OP03, and I really enjoyed the deck then, so that is pretty much why I'm going to be hopping on this deck for OP07. So really fun black deck. If you like black, this is like the best of black pretty much. Here is an example deck list right here. Pretty much a lot of the CP package from OP03. We have the Spandam, we have the Khalifa, we have the 5-cost Kaku. And we even have the NES Lobby stage that was out in OP03, but nobody played it. Now we are playing this in OP07. It is very, very strong. And we are playing a few of the new cards, including the new Sabo, the new Spandine from EB, which can actually do crazy plays like pull out a Lucci, which means we can do Moria into a Rebecca pull out Spandine, and Spandine's going to play Lucci. So we basically played a Lucci off Rebecca, which is a disgusting combo. This deck is very consistent. It is very overwhelming in certain scenarios. It's really hard to beat. The only deck that 100% wipes this deck off the face of the earth and is really hard to win is going to be Black Yellow Luffy, just because they are repeating those Sabo effects, which makes their whole board unable to be KO'd. But that is why these Lucci players have started teching in right here. If you can see this 5-cost Nightmare Luffy. Nightmare Luffy, if you don't know, is another new card in OP07 that is basically going to trash a card on attack. So trashing cards gets around the they can't be KO'd effects. So if they're 0 life and they only have 1 blocker, we can just minus, all down on Luffy, swing 16k and like go for game while we KO blocker. It's a way to counter the deck. But in my opinion, at least for what I'm going to do, I think the deck's a losing matchup anyway. So it's probably better to tech in other matchups. You can twist out the list how you like. Sorry, I probably talked about Lucci too long. It's just the deck I'm going to play. So sorry I gave it a little extra love. Next up here, we actually have Yellow Enel, another deck that is making a little bit of a resurgence here in OP07. Obviously, it was insane in OP05. Gonna make a pretty large resurgence. At the start of OP07, this deck was absolutely dominant, and people were complaining about it heavily. Now it's a little bit less egregious, but still very, very strong as it gets a lot of new tools. So this new 2K Frankie right here is insane. It plays itself for free as a 5K body when you're at 1 life or less on trigger, and draws you a card. That is a crazy effect. As well as this new 10-cost Ace is probably the main reason this deck is now so insane. Enel was already running these big bodies that heal. Ace is like the perfect card for this deck. It was a match made in heaven. If you play this card, he's going to heal you 1. And then if you're at 2 life or less, this card's going to get rushed. So it's a 10-10 that heals you and swings for 10. Insane card that buffed Enel by a million. 100% for in this deck for sure. Cards like Rygo, we are very versatile, and this deck is a big, big menace in OP07. So if you are playing Enel right now in OP07, I would stick with it. Again, if you enjoy Enel, please play this deck. Or if you're playing Katakuri, Katakuri falls off a bit. With the RP Law kind of runs it down, which is the problem. RP Law being the best deck in the meta. If you are playing Katakuri, kind of going to fall off. Enel doesn't struggle as much with RP Law. So if you do like yellow, you like the shenanigans, this is the deck I would jump onto. Next up here, we actually have Green Bonnie, another new leader, our second new leader, in fact, in the top 5 showings for flagship wins here. With 55 wins, that is a lot in 1 month. This deck is insane. It just has so many tools, and the leader effect, oh my god, the leader effect is so strong. If you like green, green is back with this deck. Like, this incorporates all the best cards that green has ever had and throws them into an insane leader with an insane leader effect, and it's just like a really, really fun deck that's really hard to deal with. I think a pretty high skill ceiling, so if you enjoy hard decks, I think this is one to go to. There's not really a... Excuse me. There's not really a crazy green deck right now besides Uta. Uta is not as good as Bonnie's going to be in OP07, but if you do like green, I think Bonnie's a deck to go to. If we look at an example list here, we're actually running a few new cards, but a lot of old green staples, like ACOS Eustace Kid. This deck is running. A lot of these decks just kind of take till you have no life, bunch of cards in hand, and then you do the ACOS Eustace Kid plan. That's a tried and true classic for green. This deck's going to do it as well with the Don Quixote Rocinante 2-drop. Playing off the kid is going to make it really hard to remove on the turn that you play it. We run cards like Zoro and Hody to just go insane and in games. So if we're playing against decks like Enel or Black Yellow Luffy, this deck completely crushes them. So if you hate Black Yellow Luffy, it doesn't matter what deck you're playing. If you just want to counter that deck, boom, here's your deck, guys. This is the deck that beats Black Yellow Luffy, 100%. Cards like Cavendish are fantastic as well. This deck runs a lot of 5-drops. This is a bit of a different list compared to a lot of them. Some of them will even run the ACOS Corazon to play out Cavendish, or even the new Bonnie 5/6 SR that is going to stun a card or a Dawn. And I think the last card I want to mention here is this new 6/7 Hawkins blocker is insane. One of the only anti-removal completely, like this is not just anti-KO effects, this is anti-bottom deck effects. If your opponent has a standing character, this card just gets arrested instead of getting bottom decked. So, which means if you cannot play characters that are going to remove this card, because once you play a character with removal, right, now Hawkins has a target to rest, which means the only way you can remove Hawkins is with event removal after all your characters are rested. So he's a really sticky card and very, very hard to deal with. So again, just the best of green. I didn't even talk about the leader effect. Bonnie leader effect is 1 Dawn. You can arrest a leader or character on your opponent's attack. So pretty much getting infinite counter for 1 Dawn every single turn. Just absolutely ridiculous. This card is so good. And next up here, we have Moria. Everybody knows Moria right now. We're in OP06, guys. We know Moria is good, so I'm not going to go over this really quickly. Moria basically stays exactly the same and is good for pretty much the exact same reasons. Like, looking at this list that topped, I think the only new card in this list is actually the Isho, which is not even a new card. This is just a card we're running to counter the current meta, which is a lot slower. With decks like Enel and stuff like that, this card just is great to play down and rip cards out of hand. So, not going to go over this too quick. If you like Moria right now, hop on this leader, stick on him. He's still really good. This 31 here is just unreported flagship wins. So these are flagships that we knew happened, but we don't actually know who won them. But there are 31 that are unreported. And then next up here is one of the most interesting ones to talk about. We made a couple videos here on in the channel. It is OP06 Perona. Very interesting leader that people thought was going to be really good going to OP06. She pretty much had almost 0 results, surprisingly, which kind of sucks because the leader's cool. But in this set, OP07, there is a very interesting build that we made a couple videos on before, Wano based, that is really, really strong. So this is the list right here. We are utilizing this card from OP01, which is a 1 Dawn, rest 2 of your characters and draw 2, along with cards like the 4-cost Hiyori, which we can play rest with, say, this 1-cost Searcher Otama. So we rest 2 cards, draw 2, and then Hiyori can trash herself, and then play either the Ryuma from hand or a 5/7 vanilla while drawing a card. And then in the later stage of the game, we have cards like Sabo and Moria paired with Leader Effect. Just a insanely strong deck with card draw, card draw, card draw, card draw. So if you like Perona and OP06 or you love card draw, this is like the most card draw I've ever felt on a deck other than Reiju. You are just seeing your whole deck every game. Like, the amount of consistency with the Wano package, like we have Momo Searcher, we have draw 2, we have draw off of Otama, we have Hiyori draw, we have Moria to bring things back, we have Sabo draw 2, discard 2, like this card draws your whole deck sometimes. It is actually insanely ridiculous and really, really fun deck at that. Next up here, we have Yamato, I think is worth talking about. Yamato, obviously good right now, is also good next set. It gets, I think, a couple new tools. I don't know if I have a deck list for it here, unfortunately. But it is basically the same deck as it is right now. We're just going face, we're going aggro. Some lists choosing to run the Wano package with the same stuff as Perona was running with the 1-cost event. And cards like Momonosuke and Hiyori. But it's same old Yamato. If you like Yamato, you can stick with it as well. Nami, also a standout that kind of came out of nowhere for this set. With decks like Enel and Black Yellow Luffy, even Lucci to an extent, which are kind of slower decks, Nami can kind of eat them alive. Especially decks like Enel that are just going really slow. Because pretty much you're playing her game, right? Now you need to end the game before Nami just wins. And not to mention, these new Nami lists are now running a new package. So we are running the new 3/2 blocker included in OP07 that draws you a card. So we have a new access to a card draw, as well as this new event right here. I'm pretty sure this bounces a card to hand with giving 4K counter. So bouncing a Kaya while giving 4K counter, like Nami really couldn't ask for more. And I think can also bounce an enemy card. I think you bounce an enemy card and your card is what you have to do. I could be completely wrong on that, so don't take my word for it. But pretty much same old Nami, as you can see. We're still running the Impo down stuff and just trying to deck out. So yeah, definitely a deck, very niche. So I don't really know if there's anything that I would say it translates from OP06 to OP07 Nami besides Nami herself. So if you like Nami right now, I'd say this is the best she's ever been, quote unquote. Obviously, she even gets tops now in OP06, but she gets a bit more in OP07. So very strong deck and really fun deck in the right hands. And last but not least, the last leader I want to talk about here is the 9-win leader right here, which is Boa Hancock, our last new leader included in OP07 that is really making a difference. This card, definitely not tier 1. It's going to be tier 2, but it's going to be really strong, and it's going to counter a lot of the good decks in the top of the meta. From what I've heard, this deck destroys Black Yellow Luffy. Raging Tiger just completely invalidates the game plan. As well as decks like Perona and even Law. Not Perona, sorry. I meant Bonnie and Law are not even that bad. Even Enel with cards like Red Rock are just going to be not even that hard. So this deck has a lot of good matchups, which is the good part about it. However, it does lose really hard into Lucci, and I think even Moria to that extent. But here is an example list here. We're running a ton of the new Warlord stuff, which is really fun, with the new 1-cost Sengoku Searcher, searching out a Warlord, as well as this new 5-cost Jinbei SR that can play any of these 4-cost Warlords from hand, getting a lot of value to board. We also have this new SR Boa Hancock that is going to stun something as well as bottom deck something, activating your leader effect a lot of the time, and drawing us a card. Really, really fun deck here. If you ever played Blue Croc, or pretty much any mono blue deck for that matter, Boa is the best mono blue, has, I think, ever been. Mono Blue was okay in OP01, but from then on, it really didn't ever see that much light. I think OP04, like Blue Croc, was okay, but this is definitely, if you like blue, blue is back with this deck. We even can run stuff like Sanji. I don't think all of them run Sanji, but you can if you want. Basically just utilizing the best removal from blue. We got Red Rock, we got Raging Tiger, right? That's your standard stuff. Some even running 3000 Worlds, stuff like that. Just a complete blue removal, mid-range board state. Fun deck if you like blue for sure. I'd say even if you like Sokka, but maybe you don't want to play Lucci, this could be like a good deck to translate to. It is not as strong as Sakazuki was by any means. Lucci is definitely getting closer to that, but fun deck for sure. And that is going to be our complete meta breakdown. These are 5-win leaders in Doflamingo, Katakuri, RP Luffy. 3 wins, we got Blue Yellow Ace, Purple Luffy, Reiju, and then I'd say this Ivankov and Smoker aren't even really worth talking about, but I've seen these leaders get a few wins here, but I'm not going to go through deck lists or really talk about them. So if you like these leaders, yeah, they're pretty decent in this set too. Probably really low tier 2 or high tier 3. But anyways, guys, that is going to be the video. I hope I helped you find a deck that you're going to hop on for OP07. I myself, stating again, I'm going to be hopping on Black Lucci. Any Lucci players, comment Lucci in the comments for me. Let's go CP0. This is the best Lucci has ever been. If you're going to hop on RP Law, good for you. This deck is an absolute monster next set. So I'm scared of you. But I'm honestly glad that this is our best deck. I think this is a very healthy meta, and I think it's going to be really, really fun to get into. So with that being said, you guys have a great day. This has been Jim with Awaken TCG. Please do like, comment, and subscribe, and check out our Patreon. There's a lot of great content on there that's going to help improve your game. But anyways, I'm going to head out here. You guys have a good night. Peace.